I'm excited to welcome in my guy, Chidi Gabriel. Chidi, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good today. Can't complain. I'm alive and well. I woke up. I'm breathing. That's all. That's all I need to really be happy about. What's to come.
Yeah, I hear you, and you definitely got the right background because obviously it relates to tennis, but it also relates to the world. You know what I mean? We need more love in the world. So, with that said, I always like to dive right into things and follow you on Instagram. You're doing a lot of good stuff, man. And I was just super curious to kick things off. How did you get into the sport of tennis?
Um, I got into the sport of tennis. I'm not gonna say it was like on purpose or if it was an accident or if it was like a plot by my parents or something. But I think my mom just liked how it looked on TV, to tell you the truth. And my dad, like, he kind of just messed around with a tennis racket because my parents are they're both from Nigeria. So I'm like firstborn American, well, firstborn generation here. Uh, and yeah, my mother really just liked how it looked on TV. My dad used to mess around and play. I have baby pictures with tennis rackets. Um, like when I first could walk, I have like baby pictures when I was in a diaper, literally dragging a tennis racket along with me. I had like tennis sweaters, um, like from birth. And so I don't know if it was just meant to be. I guess it was meant to be. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
got to sport tennis with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And now I know you're coaching, but can you talk about a little bit of the work that you're doing right now as a coach?
As a coach, okay. Recently I moved to Atlanta. Uh, didn't really know that Atlanta was this big of a tennis hub nationally. But I've pretty much been doing a lot of high performance coaching as well as getting people into the sport. Specialize literally in everything uh, between beginners and professionals. Um, but I've been coaching full time for the past 7 years, I believe.
Okay.
And I graduated school 2014. Yeah. So for the past 7 years, I've been coaching full time. Um, it's been a journey. It's been a learning experience. Um, it's taught me a lot about business in general and how cold the business world is. At the same time, it taught me how to maneuver in the business world and handle, do what I need to do. Um, so overall, yeah, that's pretty much been me in tennis in the coaching world. I started off at the John McEnroe Tennis Academy up in New York. Then I moved over to New Jersey, where I was a director at two different facilities um, before ultimately getting down here to Atlanta and kicking things off.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
hear you. I hear you. And I think, one of the things already you said that was very interesting is like you find out quickly how cold the business can be. You got to figure out how to maneuver it. You know what I mean? I think that's like even I spent time in corporate, but it was kind of the same thing. Like the business
Mhm.
is cold, and people will say that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm cold; it's just the way the business is. And same thing with tennis, which is why I felt I needed to chart my own path and have my own voice and work on my own terms. And that's what I do with my brand. And so, and I know you're doing some
Uh,
amazing things too. But one of the things that I wanted to ask, a good segue would be, as a black coach, what are some of the challenges that you face as a not only a black coach but call it a tennis entrepreneur?
okay. All right. Cool. That was actually my favorite question I looked at it. I was thinking about it, and there are two different ways that I could really go about this. It's two different ways. I'm from New Jersey. I'm cutthroat. I'm gonna tell you things straight up, and that's the route I'm choosing. I'm choosing. I go on Twitter a lot, and they say they choose violence. Like they're waking up in the morning, they choose violence. So today, I guess you could say I'm choosing violence. Um, so as a black coach, Some of the biggest challenges, the biggest challenges that I've faced currently as a black coach, past as a black coach. Um, but the biggest out of all the challenges, there's so many challenges as a black coach. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's so many challenges as a black coach. I feel like there's so many challenges as a black man in general, where it's like in order to show your worth, it's almost like you have to go 5 times harder just in general, um, regardless of what your track record is, regardless of who you've trained, regardless of how many players you've brought up, regardless of literally, regardless of your history. It doesn't matter. Like it's almost like as a black coach, you literally have to go 5 times harder. Am I going to complain about that? No, I'm not really going to complain about that. Because at the end of the day, challenges they make you better, especially if you're able to overcome them. And it's like a day by day thing where you have to overcome it regardless, and it's never going to stop. Um, but that's like me leading into saying that I feel like the biggest challenge that I felt as a black coach is, I'm not going to say validation, but it's more so getting people to truly believe in what you're feeding them, right? As in, for example, let's say I'm training a player, uh, and people love having multiple coaches. People love having multiple coaches. Um, don't know why. I feel like that's a little detrimental to the game if you're trying to raise like a high performance player, um, because it's a whole lot of different voices. But the challenge of being a black coach is like, regardless how right you are in creating the player, it's very easy for our counterparts to, and when I say counterparts, I'm talking about everybody else besides us black coaches, to I guess you could say add an input, and people are more inclined to, I guess you could say, listen to it, as, and that kind of ties into what I was saying before, as in like as the black coach we have to go 5 times harder. Like I feel like all of our counterparts it's easier for people to listen to them, but then I could literally be giving you the same exact information or better, and it's like I have to really prove it to you over and over again, that my quote unquote method of doing things is right. Um, and it happens a lot, it happens a lot. I've seen it, I've watched it happen, and it's happened to me. Um, yeah, watched it happen, it's happened to me, and I guess it's really life at the end of the day.
For sure.
It's life at the end of the day. That's the world we live in. It's tough to be a black coach in any sport, to tell you the truth. From college football to the NBA, it's like, oh, we have a black coach, and now it's like everybody's paying attention to every single little detail that you do. Where, vice versa, like I said, our counterparts, like they're not so, I guess you could say, I'm not going to micro managed by the world that it's directly affecting.
100%.
Yeah, like literally, and like you could see it happen in sports all the time. From, what was the example I was thinking about earlier? When I read this question, I was thinking about an example. Boom. All right, so Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
when the Golden State Warriors first started becoming like a competitor and a threat in the league,
Have
their
Mark
coach
Jackson.
was Mark Jackson. Exactly, right?
Yep.
Now they had like a killer season with Mark Jackson. But I don't know the details. I don't know the background story to everything, but that's a little awkward to me to have like literally they had like one of the best seasons, if not the best season that the Golden State Warriors had in 20 plus years with Mark Jackson. And then the following year after that happened, he's not there anymore. Usually I always thought like in sports that if you have like a winning season and your team has been known for losing previously, they try to keep the system going and going, right? But all of a sudden it went from Mark Jackson, who's clearly he's a competent coach because he took them to whatever level in the NBA. However deep they made it in the playoffs, he did that. And then the following year, he's not there, and Steve Kerr, and they get to the NBA Finals where they win, or something like that. But Mark Jackson was one who he created the nucleus, right?
Right. Yeah.
But now you have Steve Kerr, who's a 3-time coach, NBA champion, off of somebody else's nucleus. So I feel like I'm not going to say all of it, but I feel like a good majority of the work was really put in from a Black coach.
Yeah.
When it came to taking that team from being subpar to being elite.
For sure.
So
yeah. And
it was like something that's elite was handed to a non-Black coach.
Yeah, and I feel like to your point, sometimes it's like society tells people that, once you get to a certain level, could be like having a Black coach isn't going to get you to the next level. You know what I mean? And in some way, shape, or form, people will say it that way, and to your point you made earlier, just on the tennis forefront, is like we always have to constantly find ways to improve ourselves, to keep doing better, because, there's always that eyeball looking to either take something from
Somebody,
us or say we didn't do a good job. That's why I'm moving on, or vice versa. So, I mean, but with that said, I think it can be a curse. It could be a gift too, because at the same time, you know, if someone's walking past the tennis courts, I stick out. They want to know what I'm doing. They want to know, who am I teaching? What kind of program am I running? How can they be a part of it? You know what I mean? But I feel as though call it what it is, white coaches blend in, but we were born to stand out. And I just feel like in a sport like tennis that is growing like it is, the opportunity right now is huge. And a couple more questions I like to ask you is just, as you think about the opportunities for you for tennis, like where do you think you can take your tennis coaching to?
um, where do I think I could take my tennis coaching to? I personally feel like I could take my tennis coaching to the the the, the peak of tennis coaching. That's personally how I feel. Like every time I stepped on the tennis court um when I was playing, I was always thinking like I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm just trying to go to college and that's okay. Like I was always thinking like, oh, I want to play professionally. Like I want to be able to hit like the guys I see on TV. I always look at the end goal, and when I look at the end goal, I always look at the highest level of the end goal.
Mhm.
Um, that's just how I look at everything. So when it comes to me and tennis coaching, I think that I believe that in whatever level I am handling, if it's beginners to intermediates to the most advanced players, I feel like just with my coaching personally. I, I just feel like I do and show and can in the future as I elevate, just keep rising and showing that I'm really top tier, you know?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I think from that perspective, it's like, how do you keep elevating? How do you keep growing? And how do you essentially just give the world the best of yourself? And on that note, and a good segue there is like, what are some of your, as a black coach, what are some of your goals? What are you trying to accomplish?
Um, so my goals are honestly, I at this point in my life, I kind of figured out why I'm doing this,
Yeah.
you know? And that's really the biggest question that I feel like a lot of coaches can't even answer for themselves, to tell you the truth. Um, I'm just doing literally just for the money. But I could say that I had an epiphany and I realized why I'm doing it is for the next generation. It's for the generation coming up behind me. Because throughout my journey of being a tennis player, I bounced around all over the place. Well, to to make a long story short, in order for me to in order for me to go from being the 11-year-old who stopped playing soccer because I messed up my knee to playing at the University of Louisville, transferring to Florida A&M, playing professionally before and playing professional tournaments before and after my college experience. The journey in general was very, I guess you could say, I was bouncing around and I was bouncing around, but I was always a smart um, I was always a smart kid. I was very intellectual. Um, I noticed that a lot of things didn't work for me. Um, because at the end of the day, like we we are like as a black man, we are top tier athletes. There are things that I can do that nobody else can do. Like, why is there an 11-year-old who can jump 4 feet over a tennis net and I'm laughing about it and everybody's looking in awe? So I could literally say like the biggest challenge was like finding a pocket where people understood how to control the the just the natural gifts that I'm blessed with of being a black man.
Yeah.
And me going through it and going through the like you could literally say the bullshit,
Hmm.
excuse my language, but going through the BS. Um, I understand like the path that like people who look like me should be taking. Um, because honestly, it's really a direct path if if you just let it happen and you don't let so many voices kind of like deter you from what you can do. Um,
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
and
I,
like I literally bounced around. I went from one coach to another coach to living at the tennis academy to coming back to a different coach. And then everything flipped and I started coaching. And as I'm teaching, as you teach, you start figuring out how to get kids to do things better, you know? Uh, and then I would think, and I'll double back and remember my experience. I'm like, wow, so if somebody really showed me how to do this earlier, I would have been, I know for a fact, I would have been able to do this. Like you start putting little pieces together, especially as a player who bounced around from coach to coach, means that you just pick the brains from multiple people and you formulated the game for yourself. Like not somebody directing you. There are players who have to be directed. Like they need direction in every aspect. Like they can't even pick what food they eat in the morning.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Vice versa, you have the player who literally, I figured out how to go to the tournaments by myself. I went from not having any ranking to being the number one in the East, top 25 in the nation. And I did this off of bouncing from coach to coach and not having anything direct, and using like my physical abilities to still overcome, knowing that I'm not polished as a player. I'm not polished at all. So I feel like that person who really figured it out for themselves is dangerous, because my mind, like mentally, I understand how to navigate on my own. So if I was able to figure out how to navigate on my own, I know for a fact that next kid I see who happens to just be a ridiculous athlete and they're having trouble in any way, shape, or form, I know how to directly tell you what you're doing. Like, yo, dude, it's not as hard as you really think it is.
Yeah, I feel
And
you on that.
you try to convince the parents the same thing. It's like, it's really not that hard, but you guys are making it more difficult because you see what you want, but do you know how to get there? No. Like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of these players, a lot of these parents, when it comes to them giving children, they don't know what they want. But they want to win. So
Yeah, and I
what do
think,
you
and for that note, I mean, I think communication is key, right? A lot of parents they'll not like something, and then next thing you know, you see them three courts down with another coach, right? Like, you could have had the conversation with me. And one of the things, and one of the last questions I had for you that I really wanted to ask was, and you made me think of it, is just like, in terms of advice, like, you talked a lot about you charting different pathways to different places, and where you came from. But if you think about the young coach coming up, and knowing what you know, what advice would you have for them kind of starting their career off in, of a very up and down industry?
and know that just know that you're gonna go through some BS before as a young as a young black tennis coach stepping into the business, you're gonna get into some BS.
Absolutely.
And when I say BS, I'm talking about at first you're gonna you're gonna literally feel like your feelings are hurt. I'm not gonna lie to you. You're gonna feel like your feelings are hurt. You're gonna feel like you're better than how you should be treated. Um, you're gonna literally there's gonna be some days where you're gonna want to literally like smash your racket and leave. But you just have to know that you're gonna see some BS and expect the BS, and literally don't let it affect you. You have to kind of become numb to it and use it more so as like a driving force to show the world that, yo, I'm here and I'm here to stay. And at the end of the day, like, I know what I'm talking about. That's if, if everything there fits, then you should be fine. Like, nothing should deter you from your end goal. And know what your end goal is. Like, do you want to specialize here? Do you want to specialize here? Do you want to specialize here? Do you want to own a facility at the end of the day? Because you're not going to want to stand on your feet the whole entire time. Um, like, what's your end goal? Like, what do you want? What do you truly want out of it? Once you know that, it's almost like all the BS that you go through is irrelevant, because at the end of the day, like, I know what my end goal is and I know where I'm going to end up. And I believe I will get there. So if you understand those things, the BS doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's actually very easy to deal with. Um, like when I was younger, I would literally go home and just be thinking about it, like, yo, how how am I not the one who's the hitting partner for this kid, and I'm clearly like way better than this guy. Like, how come you don't have me traveling here with this? Like, you start realizing, like, okay, cool. Like, at the end of the day, I can't control anybody else's actions. I can just control myself.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
like, everything that you don't like kind of just gets tossed out the window,
100%.
and you literally just keep going. You have to have like a direct focus on what you want. and it becomes really easy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that, man. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. You got to know your end goal. You can't. I saw a post maybe 30 minutes before we hopped on, and it said something like, "Don't don't live every year the same for 75 years. Like you shouldn't do the exact same thing. Like that shouldn't just be life, right? You should be living. So to your point, always have an end goal. Um,
Exactly.
but honestly, man, this is all I wanted to do. This was great. I mean, just listening to you, your story, I think you have some great nuggets that a lot of people who will watch this will be able to pull out from and incorporate in what they do. And just for everybody who's going to see this, where can they follow you? What are your handles?
Um, I mean, follow my YouTube, follow my Instagram. Like I do a lot. Like I'm in the sports world. I'm in the entertainment world. You can find me at Chad Bussa on Instagram. You can find me at my website. It's tennisrodman.com. The Rodman spelled with a zero, not a L. Um, you could check out a short film that I featured in. We actually placed second at the Chicago International Film Festival. Your top 10, we were one of the top 10 best films at the Locarno Film Festival. Best international. It's like where is that? Somewhere in Europe. I forget off the top of my head right now. But yeah, you can definitely check it out. It's called Gramercy. Um, kind of about it's kind of about like a little look into our upbringing in New Jersey, as Black kids in New Jersey. Yeah, that's pretty much it.